Hey, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another great edition of Horse Center. This week, Matt, we're talking big races from Saratoga on Saturday.
We sure are. It's a dandy card, Brian, this weekend with the 3-year-old race, the Jim Dandy, the Vanderbilt, the Bowling Green. Great racing at Saratoga.
Yeah, we got War Will, we got Tacitus, we got Mitole on the undercard. We have Enable going for a second. King George and Queen Elizabeth over at Ascot, Matt. We'll also be talking about Maximum Security, Guarana, Midnight Bisou, Catalina Cruiser. Jam-packed show this week for you. Watch it all now here on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the extra special pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I'm back in Saratoga for a big weekend of racing.
Yeah, Saratoga's the place to be right now, Matt. We got the curling on Friday, but we're going to talk about Saturday. Saturday's feature is, of course, the Jim Dandy, 9 furlongs for the 3-year-olds. And Matt, Jim Dandy, were you around when he pulled off the big upset up there at Saratoga?
Not quite. I think I was born the year after that race.
All right, fair enough. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Hey, Matt, we only got 6 in Saturday's Jim Dandy, but the good news is it's a good field of 6.
Yeah, Brian, it certainly is. Nothing wrong with a field of 6 when it's got quality like this. 4 graded stakes winners in the field, and I think a really interesting pace dynamic.
Yeah, good pace dynamic. And Matt, you said 4 graded stakes winners. I would say there's 6 horses in this race. They've all won stakes this year. And the 2 that didn't win graded stakes, those races very well may be graded next year. So we got a nice field. Let's start on the rail. You mentioned the pace dynamic. It looks like the Steve Asmussen trained Laughing Fox will be last of all early. He's coming off a very good Preakness, though, probably even better than it looks on paper. He really made up some ground after he got through and around traffic in the Preakness.
Yeah, he certainly did. He got way behind, like big double digits behind. Last place, ended up 5th in the Preakness. He is a closer, but typically not that kind of distance behind. I think Laughing Fox in here could very well be a horse that obviously is going to be making a late run and could pick up some pieces here and get into the trifecta.
Yeah, and at 10-1, he might be worth a play to do just that. Although pace dependent, it's going to be he'll need a little bit of pace because a lot of these horses ahead of him early won't be exactly coming back. Let's talk about the 2, Matt. Another horse I think who could drift up close to 10-1, and that's Tax. Tax is coming out of the Belmont Stakes where he chased Joevia for most of the race. Never could get by him, but finished a pretty good 4th in there. Tax will be breaking from the 2-hole in the Jim Dandy.
Yep, he certainly will for Danny Gargan, and Gargan has already stated that Tax is going to get sent to the lead, and we'll see what happens. And that's what kind of will get the Jim Dandy started in an interesting kind of way with him going to the lead. There are 3 or 4 others in there that have very good tactical speed also and like to run close to the pace. So it'll be interesting to see for how long those types let Tax run on the lead.
Yeah, the good-looking gelding has been consistent this year other than a tough trip in the Kentucky Derby. It'll be interesting to see if he does, in fact, do what trainer Danny Gargan says because, I don't know, I think Global Campaign might have a little bit more early speed. Tax is inside him. He's inside the number 2 hole. So Tax is a horse I kind of like in here, Matt. I think he's working really well, and he might be still on the improve, matching his looks a little bit. So Tax might be the most live long shot in the race for me. The 3 is another long shot, but another good long shot, Matt. Mijo's Centennial Farm, Jimmy Jerkins, lightly raced still, flashed some talent over the winter, hasn't gotten done in the last 2 races, but the last one was off a layoff. I could see improvement here.
Yeah, that's possible. And Mijo certainly was a little bit of a flash in the pan early on the Derby Trail in January at Gulfstream Park, and when he won the Mucho Macho Man, and I think that was one of the stakes, Brian, that you were talking about. That's been a pretty good quality stakes race the past few years. But after that, he went to the Holy Bull and was disappointing. Took time off, came back in the Dwyer where he ran fourth, and we're at that point with Mijos. Did he need the race? Is he going to improve off that? Or is he just not quite where he was when he won the Mucho Macho Man?
Yeah, he looks like the outsider of the six in the field, but that I think says something in itself, because he's a nice horse, and like I said, he could improve. Centennial Farm, Jimmy Jerkins, and certainly his father, the great Alan Jerkins, have had a good history up at Saratoga. So watch out for Mijos as the longest shot on the board. Number 4 won't be a long shot, Matt. Number 4, I think, is going to get bet a lot, even though he might not be as well known to some as the horses outside him. Global Campaign was a nice winner of the Peter Pan last time. He's fought some hoof issues throughout the year for trainer Stanley Huff, but he beat Sir Winston in the Peter Pan. This is his first race since then.
Right, and of course, Sir Winston came back from that race to win the Belmont Stakes, so that was a feather in the cap of Global Campaign. 4 races only in his career, 3 wins. All those wins were impressive. And you mentioned foot problems, and that's why the horse has only run 4 times. He has been able to put together 3 evenly spaced workouts up at Saratoga in July, and that's a good thing. That certainly is a positive for Global Campaign, a horse that I like a lot in this race.
Yeah, and he very well may fit from a speed figure standpoint. He may be on the lead if it's not tax, and he may be a horse who's ready to really bust out this year, starting with the Jim Dandy. The number 5 horse is a horse we all know well. I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Derby and the Wood Memorial winner as well. Tacitus ran well in both the Kentucky Derby, placed 3rd, and then a rallying 2nd in the Belmont Stakes. Comes out of the 1.5 mile Belmont, though, last time, Matt. Tacitus, if I had to pick one horse to be the favorite in the Jim Dandy, it would probably be Tacitus.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tacitus is also going to be the favorite in the race. And before those 2 races in the Triple Crown Series, Tacitus came into those with 3 straight wins. Really, Brian has really never run a bad race in his career in here. I don't know. In my mind, I just wonder whether the classic distances, 1.25 miles and such, may be better suited for Tacitus. And maybe the Travers is the ultimate big goal for the Belmont trainee.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. And having said that, you said he won 3 straight races. Of course, those were all 9 furlongs or shorter. So maybe we're on the wrong track there.
Yep.
But he's coming out of the Kentucky Derby and then the 12 furlong Belmont last time. Certainly the Travers is the bigger goal for this horse, the son of Tappet. And I'm not sure he's completely cranked up. I think this is it's a rich prep. I believe it's $600,000, but it still is a prep for the Travers. And I think Tacitus, it might be that type of horse who will do an even better performance next time at the 10 furlong Travers. That brings us to the last horse in the field, War of Will, Matt. 3-time stakes winner this year, and of course a classic winner when he won the Middle Jewel, the Preakness at Pimlico.
Right, Brian. And coming from the barn of Mark Casse, and Mark Casse's trademark is that he likes to run his horses. And when War of Will was a bit disappointing in the Belmont Stakes immediately after, it sounded like War of Will was going to get a little bit of time off and train up to the Travers, but he bounced right back and has been up here at Saratoga, looking good, training smartly, and that in Cassie's way, he said, "Hey, my horse is happy and healthy, so we're going to run in the Jim Dandy." And here he is, as he has shown in all the races where he's run well. He has good tactical speed. He likes to stay close to the pace, and will unleash a run heading into the turn and such. And figures to be a big factor.
Well, Matt, he's my top pick in here. I like pretty much everything about him. I'm not going to hold too much against him for the Belmont. I think that mile-and-a-half distance was a little bit more than he wanted. Trying to make a move after already having run a mile and a quarter is probably not War of Will's game. And then he was bothered pretty badly to boot in that Belmont. So I'm going to draw a line right through that Belmont. He's put on weight. He's training really well, like you say, in upstate New York there. And I think he really has the run of this race, Matt. Tax and Global Campaign are the two horses we talked about as potential pace setters. I think War of Will sits third. Certainly has more speed than Tacitus and probably Mijos. He sits on the outside in third. That seems like the perfect place to be in this short field. I like War of Will now, mile and eighth at Saratoga, probably more than I would like him if this was the 10 furlong Travers already. So War of Will's my top pick. And I think there is a scenario here, Matt, where he's the third choice because I think Global Campaign really is going to get bet a lot. It's not saying it's going to be a long shot by any means, but maybe he drifts up to closer to 3-1 as the third choice. He's my top pick.
Sounds fair, Brian. For me, I'm going to go with Global Campaign in here. As I mentioned, I like that he's been able to put together some workouts. I think this is the Jim Dandy maybe a time when we get to see all of the talent of the Sagamore Farms runner.
Okay, Global Campaign will have to move up in class to do it. I know he beat Sir Winston last time, but he's never beaten the likes of Tacitus and War of Will. I'm going War of Will, and I'm throwing in Tax to try to get underneath in there somewhere as my long shot runner, Matt.
Sounds fair. I'm going 4-6-5-1 in the Jim Dandy.
4-6-5-1. I like it. All right, Matt. Hey, the Jim Dandy is not the only big race on Saturday at Saratoga. Let's just make a quick mention. The two stakes leading up to the Jim Dandy, two races before the Jim Dandy, we've got Mitole, Matt, and a lot of people are on his bandwagon as the horse of the year, the potential horse of the year in 2019.
Yeah, and Mitole's cutting back in distance from that huge win in the Met Mile back to the 6 furlong distance of the Vanderbilt and back earlier in the year in his winning streak. That's the distance where Mitole was rattling off win after win after win. But this is no easy field by any means, Brian. Just to mention one, Imperial Hint's going to be in there. But it's going to be exciting to see Mitole on the track again.
Yeah, Mitole very well could be 505, and I'm not necessarily picking against him, Matt, but I'm with you, and even more so. I think this is a tough spot. He's on the rail. He's got the outstanding speed of strike power just to his outside. Imperial Hint hasn't run since Dubai, but he's usually ready to fire. And at 6 furlongs and at Saratoga, he's a monster. Frenzy Fire sitting off all that speed. It's a tough spot for Mitole. I'm going to see if he can get it done. If he does this 5 for 5, wow, he's right up there as one of the top horses of the year for sure. And then we got a big Bowling Green field, Matt. If you like betting a wide open race, I think this 11 furlong turf race is your kind of race. I'm going to try Arklow again. I'm a fan of Arklow, and he's just missed twice in a row, so I'm hoping he can get it done in the Bowling Green.
Yeah, it's a huge field, 13, 14 horses in here going on the turf in the Bowling Green. I'm going to go with Olympico. I think it's Olympico.
You're talking about the Fort Marcy winner from Chad Brown's barn.
Yes. So I'm going with Olympico in here.
All right, that's the Bowling Green. Speaking of turf, Matt, we need to hop over the pond, if you will, because Enable is working on a 10-race winning streak. She's won, of course, 2 ARCs over in France. She won the Breeders' Cup Turf last year here. She won a King George and Queen Elizabeth last summer at Ascot. Now she's going for a second. She's repeating, Matt. She's already won the biggest race in Europe, the ARC. She's going after the second biggest race in Europe, a repeat performance there. Hopefully we get to see her try to repeat in the Breeders' Cup Turf at Santa Anita this year. 1 race back, a nice win in the Coral Eclipse. But this is a tough field that she'll be facing. The great Enable will be facing Saturday at Ascot.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think the number 2 horse in the race is Crystal Ocean, but it's a really good field. Historically, Enable is looking to join a couple of really big names who were able to win the King George and Queen Elizabeth twice. That would be the Great Dahlia back in the 70s, and Swain are the only 2-time winners of that race, and Enable's trying to do it, coming back in skipped last year, and when she won the race in 2017.
Yeah, Enable would join Dahlia, Matt. We're old enough to remember Dahlia. Of course, Dahlia came over to America as well and did some big things over here for Firestone back in the day. And Swain. Yeah. Swain, of course, was a top horse in the late 90s. So it's been a long time since anybody's been able to win this King George. Hey, listen, she's going for 11 in a row, but I'm going to say this is one of the toughest races of her career. Only the 10 furlong race to get her ready for this. And you mentioned Crystal Ocean. Yeah, but he's just one of a plethora of really strong male turf horses in this race. Crystal Ocean, Anthony Van Dyke, the very good 3-year-old. Defoe is on a bit of a roll, and Waldegeist, we know Waldegeist well, came over for the Breeders' Cup as well. So if Enable does this, Matt, it is another huge feather, but we'll be watching Saturday morning from Ascot for the King George and Queen Elizabeth. And I think, Matt, we both wish the filly, the mare, Enable well, the daughter of Nathaniel, on Saturday.
That's for sure. Post time, 10:40 a.m. Eastern time.
10:40 Eastern. Well done, Mr. Schiffman. All right, Matt, let's look back real quick because I think there was some important horses, if not results, running this past weekend. And, of course, we got to start with the Haskell. Matt, a lot of people thought Maximum Security, I can't help but giggle just a little bit. A lot of people thought Maximum Security should have been taken down once again in the heat of the Haskell.
Yeah, that was fortunately a very, very brief bit of drama after that race, and I'm not going to get into that Stewart's decision in there, but Maximum Security was back, and certainly not in the easiest of circumstances. It was a good, solid field. The temperatures were soaring. It was hot and humid in New Jersey, and Maximum Security just ran a super race, got out of the gate very, very alertly. Luis Saez took a measure of what was going on, and when a couple of other horses decided to go to the lead, he raided with Maximum Security a little bit, and going down the back stretch, he was about in the third path, going around the turn. He got the lead, took care of those 2 horses, but then had to fight off another challenge from the Bob Baffert runner, Mucho Gusto, who we talked about in the preview show. And they battled it out down the stretch. It looked like Mucho Gusto had a good shot, but ultimately Maximum Security lengthened and pulled ahead by a little bit more than a length when they hit the wire. Fractions were good. Final time of the race was 1:47, I think, .62, which was the fastest Haskell since 2011.
Yeah. The heat was on. We're not going to talk too much about the heat. I do think he did bother King for a Day, by the way, for what it's worth. But on the other hand, I don't think he should have come down because obviously Maximum Security and Mucho Gusto were moving better than King for a Day at that point. Wish King for a Day got a better chance, though. Maximum Security, hey, listen, he did what he did in the Florida Derby. He did what he did in the Kentucky Derby. He didn't get it done in the Pegasus, but he's got that ability to look horses in the eye and put them away in the stretch after being on or near the lead. And it was nice to see him pretty relaxed early, so a very good performance. I'm skeptical whether we see him come back quickly for the 10 furlong Traverse at Saratoga. At 10 furlongs, I think that would be a really good test and one that could legitimately say he is the best 3-year-old in the country. Right now, he's at the top of the heap, but I think these Jim Dandy horses and Traverse horses will certainly have something to say about it. But very good performance for Maximum Security. He was better than Mucho Gusto, who's clearly become a nice horse for trainer Bob Baffert. Speaking of nice horses, Matt, we now have Guarana at 3 for 3 after her win in the Coaching Club American Oaks up there at Saratoga.
Yeah, and again, it was another very hot day up here in Saratoga, and Guarana was sent off as a big favorite, going the mile and an eighth distance, and maybe Guarana at that 9 furlongs is pushing the limits of her distance preferences, because coming for home, she appeared to be a little tired and didn't win by open lengths like she did in the other races. But that's okay. It was a very hot day.
Yeah, Guarana, people are going to look at this and right away assume that she's a one-turn horse because she didn't win like she did her maiden race or Acorn. I'm going to call poppycock on that just a little bit. I'm not sure. You know, her sire, Ghost Zapper, might have been better at one turn too, but as he got older and more mature, certainly probably his best races ever run were at a distance of ground, certainly that Breeders' Cup Classic. Listen, no horse wins every race by 10 lengths, and Guarana wasn't going to win this race by 10 lengths at any point. Point of honor, by the way, is a very good, improving 3-year-old filly, the Black-Eyed Susan winner, and I think she is one that wants a distance. She very well could be an Alabama winner or an Alabama upsetter soon when she faces the other Chad Brown, Dunbar Road, and more in the Alabama. But getting back to Guarana, I wouldn't look at this race too harshly just because she did win by 10. Still the top 3-year-old filly in the country, and she got it done. She did what she needed to do to win the Coaching Club American Oaks. Getting it done or doing what she needed to do was exactly what Midnight Bisou did on the undercard of the Haskell. You look at the final margin, you look at who she beat, and you might say, but it was pretty impressive the way she just was push button for jockey Mike Smith in the Molly Pitcher.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. She's got a lovely turn of foot, and when Mike Smith got an opening along the rail, she sent her right on through, and she drew off to win that race pretty handily. The strategy of Steve Asmussen and the ownership group was to have her run a mile and a 16th in here, which is a distance that she certainly likes a great deal in preparation for her next start at Saratoga in the Personal Ensign. She now has strung together an awful lot of races in a row, and like I said, it was such a hot day up there. I'm going to have a little question mark in my mind heading into the Personal Ensign if she's going to be able to bounce back from, having to run fairly hard in that heat.
Okay, I'm not sure how hard she had to run in there, Matt, and I will say she's 5 for 5 this year, but they've been pretty well spread out. Remember, she was out early this year at Sam Houston. Her 5 wins have come at 4 different tracks, by the way, 4 different states, even Sam Houston, Oaklawn Park, where she beat a late twice. I think she had the conditioning factor, at least in the first one there, but she beat a late twice at Oaklawn Park. Belmont Park was a monster performance in the Grade 1 Phipps, and this was another kind of do what she had to do, and I don't think she was asked for much of the race in the Molly Pitcher. That could be a real showdown, though, because obviously a late's going well. 9 furlongs is probably the fairest distance between the two. A late being very good, going longer. Midnight Bisou, maybe a mile and eighth, is the end of her top distance spectrum. So, yeah, if we get that on Haskell Day, the Personal Ensign, Midnight Bisou against the late, that will be a showdown of sorts for sure. Midnight Bisou, though, 5 for 5, 10 of 16 lifetime. And speaking of good records, Matt, we also need to mention Catalina Cruiser. All these horses we're talking about from last week, I think, are Breeders' Cup horses that would fit highly on the Breeders' Cup list in their various races. We're not sure what race Catalina Cruiser. He could be going from anything from the Breeders' Cup Classic down to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, with the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile maybe the most likely in between. But Matt, Catalina Cruiser is now 6 for 7, 2 for 2 this year.
Yeah, Brian, these are all horses that we're talking about that are either at the top of their respective divisions or very close to it. Catalina Cruiser now has a win on the East Coast and a win on the West Coast, which is certainly noteworthy. Won the San Diego handicap pretty easily. against not the toughest field, the smallest field. And it sounds like trainer John Sadler now is thinking about stretching out in distance a little bit and maybe giving Catalina Cruiser a run in the Pacific Classic. And hey, why not, Brian? The older male division out there in California is not the toughest that it's been.
Well, it's probably every bit as strong as the East Coast older males, but the thing I like about Catalina Cruiser is his versatility, and he showed it this year. You mentioned New York to California, but also a real tough sprint where he had to kind of turn it on late in the 6.5 furlongs in the true north and run down a good sprinter, and then he goes out to Del Mar 2 turns. Not impressive, but he kind of did what he had to do, and just a really versatile horse that can do a lot of different things. Having said that, I'm sure people are wondering about 10 furlongs for the Pacific Classic. We'll see if he goes in there. Could be the favorite if he goes in there, depending on who's in there. Catalina Cruiser, you got to respect the horse who's 6 for 7 lifetime, and the last 5 of them have been in stakes races. So another nice win for Catalina Cruiser, Midnight Bisou, Guarana, and of course, Maximum Security bounces back. So a lot of big, important doings last weekend, as I'm sure we will have in the races we talked about this week. Matt, before I let you get your parting shot in, I want to thank everybody for continuing to watch HorseCenter each and every week. Matt and I love what we do. We're here for you, and we are glad that you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation, please do so. I also want to thank real quick, Matt, our sponsor, Derby Wars. Simply the best contest site out there. Now, Matt, it's your turn. Parting shot, Matt Schiffman from the Skybox there at Saratoga.
Hey, first thing I want to thank so many HorseCenter fans. I saw a bunch of you in New Jersey at the Haskell, and I've seen several of you up here in New York at Saratoga. Thanks for saying hello. I know you and I always say, please say hello, and we do want you to. I enjoy meeting you and talking to you. I hung out with one of our friends from Arkansas just yesterday, and I look forward to meeting more of you up here at Saratoga. And hey, the next HorseCenter fan that comes up to me and says, hey, Matt, do you have a Haskell hat for me? I do. So come up and say hello and ask for that Haskell hat, and I will have one for you up here in Saratoga. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Wow, Matt, a Haskell hat. Well, don't tell Naira you're giving away Monmouth Park merchandise at Saratoga. They might not like. No, I'm kidding. That's awesome. Get a Haskell hat. Say hello to Matt at HorseCenter. He loves it. I love it. And yeah, thank you to Brett. Thank you, as always, for watching, folks. We will see you right here next week. We'll be talking Whitney and much, much more right here on HorseCenter. See you then.